Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So one of my favorite guests, Todd Callender, will be joining us today. And we're going to be talking about a topic that he's been covering, which I think is really important. It's the fact that all of these elected officials never took their oaths of office. And there's some breaking news coming out of Epoch Times about Fauci and all these different directors that also did not take their oath of office. And so this is very strange that you basically have all of these actors that are pretending to be these officials that are running our government. And so I've got a bunch of questions for Todd. Why are they doing it? What are the implications? Is it part of some white hat operation, or is it part of some criminal enterprise? And just where are we at overall in this battle? So folks, this is going to be a really deeply engaging and hopefully enjoyable interview with Todd Callender. Before we get started, though, make sure you're following me on social media. It's at Man in America. On Twitter, it's at Man in America US. Every show is also done as a podcast. So if you prefer to listen, just go to your favorite podcast app and search for Man in America. You can find me on Rumble as my main video platform. I'm also on LFA TV over on Rumble as well. And maybe you've seen already, but we're doing our weekly silver giveaways. So every week, we're giving away 5 ounces of pure silver. These are little Buffalo rounds. So just as a thank you to the Man in America audience. So if you want to enter in to win, you enter in once, your name and your email, and then every week you're put back in the drawing until you win some free silver. So that sounds great. To enter in, though, go to silverseth.com. So again, that's silverseth.com. You just need your name and your email. All right, folks, let's jump in this interview with Todd Callender. Todd, it's just great to have you back on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's one of my favorite times, Seth. I love being with you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And there's just, well, obviously it's an absolute joy to talk with you, but you're brilliant, you're paying attention, and you're kind of a jack of all trades. You can go from talking legal lawfare to vaccines to New World Order to central bank digital currency, that's where, like, I'm not really an expert in anything, but I know enough about a lot of subjects to make an interesting conversation. And so it's great.
I don't know, man. I look at you and some of my other friends like you, and you interview so many people and you get to ask them these great penetrating questions. And I think that actually makes you the repository of knowledge. So actually, I enjoy talking to you because you've got knowledge I don't have. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's funny because I was interviewing another host at one point, and we were talking about this exact subject. And he goes, he's like, what we are pearl stringers. You have all these brilliant people that have the pearls. Yes. And what we do is we string them all together. And so, I just interviewed Naomi Wolf this morning, right? So I get to talk to her and see what she's doing, and then talk to General McInerney and see what he thinks, and then pull all these things together. And it really helps to form the picture because we're really, I feel like that we're at this very multi-pronged war where there's so much happening on so many different fronts that it can be overwhelming, but sometimes it's helpful to take a step back and see where everything fits together.
Yeah, the fog is clearing. Sorry about the analogies and the colloquialisms, but there are things that apply. We're seeing the information has escaped. The genie's out of the bottle. We've been in this war, and it's been really, frankly, hell for a couple, 3 years. But now we're starting to get perspective, and we can actually see what's happening. Thanks really to you and your other pearl stringers. It's a great analogy. It's coming, and the revelations. We're really here, Seth. It's all coming out, and it's all related.
It is, which brings us to one of the topics I want to hone in on today. Is that I know that you've been talking about for quite some time now the fact that you discovered that all of these elected officials didn't actually take their oath, and so they were almost like actors. Right. They were
not almost. They are actors. They're impersonating federal officials.
Exactly, and so which was kind of wild. And so I want to talk about that, but I want to bring up just this. Here's an Epoch Times article. I saw this pop up. I think it was yesterday, which just blew my mind. I said, "Oh, thank goodness I've got Todd scheduled to come on tomorrow because this is exactly it." So I'm going to read through this, and I want to hand it to you because you can give a lot more background on what we're seeing here with this Epoch Times article, but also what you've found and what your team has been working on. So This is
Sure.
on the Epoch Times. It says Fauci, other NIH officials may not have been legally appointed to their offices, House GOP says. So I'm going to read a few things here. So former NIAID director, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and a dozen other directors of the National Institutes for Health, NIH, appear not to have been legally appointed to their offices, according to a year-long investigation by the House Energy and Commerce Committee Republicans. Because of the questions about their legal status, every decision made by the directors, including most critically the winners of nearly $26 billion in research grants, could be
Yep.
subject to extended litigation or outright nullification. And it continues here, and this is, I think, a very important part of this. Among the $26 billion in grants now in question is the latest to EcoHealth Alliance, the New York-based nonprofit through which the NIH sent at least $1.7 million to the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China.
Right.
So basically, if I'm understanding this correctly, there's all these officials that are in a government capacity that did not, they're
Right.
discovering they did not take their oaths, therefore nullifying their position, meaning that they're a fraud. It's like a doctor who never went to medical
Yes.
school coming in and pretending to be a doctor. And not only would it nullify
Yeah.
their positions, but potentially every decision, every order, every directive they've instituted while at these organizations. So
Yes.
like, I'm gonna hand it over to you, Todd. What do you make of all this?
Okay, so the short answer is yes, you have that exactly right. The operative law here is 5 USC, that's US Code 3332 and 3331. And this law arises, believe it or not, out of Benedict Arnold. So back in the origins of our country, the fight for independence, the Revolutionary War, Benedict Arnold was a traitor and disclosed to the British where battles were going to happen and what fortifications we had. And so when you then secede and you have your country, how does one get people to actually act only for you, right? Because our country was full of traitors at the time. They call them loyalists. So how does one establish a duty? If I hire you, Seth, because you're going to be my Secretary of Defense, how do I make sure Seth is really the one that's going to do the job and that he's going to be loyal to this enterprise we call America? And the short answer is you create a legal duty, a lawful duty to say, okay, Seth, you swear this out with your life under penalty of perjury or maybe on your own death. How does that happen? Because if you swear an oath and you say you're going to do this job and you're going to be loyal and you don't, then the statute that applies is treason. And treason means death for you. Sedition and treason, the punishment is capital. You're going to die.
Folks, thanks for tuning in here on YouTube. Unfortunately, due to the limitations of the community guidelines, I can't publish the rest of this interview on YouTube. Otherwise, I'll get strikes and my account will be closed down because we talk about some of the things that you're not allowed to talk about on YouTube. So if you want to catch the rest of this interview, check out the description below the video. There's a link to go watch the full interview on Rumble. And just a note for you, for some of you that only follow me on YouTube, you might be thinking, gosh, why is Seth only publishing once a week, or it's mostly financial information? It's because the majority of my content I actually can't publish here on YouTube, and I have to publish over on Rumble. So I'm actually putting out 4 or 5 videos every week, but you may not even know that. So again, check out the link in the description below to watch the rest of this interview, and hopefully you can start tuning in over there on Rumble instead, because you're going to get the complete interview every single time.